Welcome back to the Mediocre Alaskan podcast. Here with the Wyoming correspondent Jaden Bales, but also Jess Johnson. Thanks for being on here for the first time, Jess.
Oh, I'm excited to.
Maybe
thanks for having us on again.
Some direction potentially to our ramblings and see if we can actually get to some real points here. So kind of a central question here. A three-part question here I want to kind of talk about because you just got back from Colorado, and I know, Jess, that you've done some extensive hunting outside of the state. So what kind of out-of-state hunter do you prefer? What kind of out-of-state hunter do you hate? And then what kind of hunter are you?
Oh, okay. So I'll tackle this first. Just because it's fresh in my mind from being in Colorado last week. And just a little bit background, if anyone doesn't know, Colorado normally has over-the-counter elk seasons. So any Joe Schmo from anywhere can go in and buy an elk license to go hunt there in most second and third seasons, and most areas in archery season too. I was hunting third season deer, and in addition to having over-the-counter third season elk licenses in this unit, there were 898 deer licenses available for this tag. So me and my 3,000 best friends were all hunting in the same area. And so I got a lot of exposure to different types of hunters. And to say the first type that I prefer is the type that'll actually talk to you. I actually don't care as much if you go into your spot, like where you're walking, but I want them to at least like acknowledge that you're there and like try to be courteous. Because and here's the other part of this, the person I hate is the one who tries to compete with you and who just like has no regard for the fact that you're even there. Because I saw both types, and both types were in my spot, air quotes, in my spot. And, just one's interaction with the other is just way different. And then I hope that I'm the type who actually just talks to people. Noting that I ended up getting invited to like camp next to people or whatever the case was on this trip. So I would imagine I'm probably the kind of guy who ends up liking to talk to folks and figure out where things are. I try to be.
That's not your problem.
No, that's not my problem normally. No.
I don't know. I think building off of Jaden's, I think I prefer the ones that I see respect the resource. Yes, talking to people and cordial and that kind of thing is a big part of it. But the ones that I really see is like the person that chooses not to drive down a really muddy two-track and rut it up, in a time where you shouldn't be on that muddy two-track. Or the person that I see that parks at the bottom of the hill and walks up, even though it's a muddy two-track. The person that I've through my spotting scope, watched somebody pick up one of those Mylar balloons, and I was like, oh, that was cool. I don't know if it was a non-resident hunter or not, but if it was, that was awesome. The people that I hate are the exact antithesis of what I just said, is the person that has zero respect for the resource. And I think the resource being not just other hunters, but the landscape and the conservation base around it. What I would hope is that I am the person that respects that and tries to leave as small a mark as possible and as cordial and fun to be around if it's a crowded spot. I guess the other side of that is like, as a resident, when I run into non-resident Wyoming hunters and they're asking me questions, not just about like where the deer are, but like how are they behaving, and if it's a newer hunter or somebody that hasn't hunted in this area before, asking like landscape scale questions, somebody that's genuinely interested in more than just like where are the big deer, but like how do I get there and how do I interact with this place in a good way.
And I've seen you pick up a lot of Mylar balloons and different trash. We call it trash karma. So I know that she's the second type.
Yeah, it's tough up here when you get back in some of those areas and you've hiked back, you've gone well, beyond the road, and you see trash and just like, man, it's disheartening because you thought you were getting further away from people, but that someone else was already there and someone who's like leaving trash. If it's a beer can, I'm even more.
Nothing like Yeah, there's literally nothing like a Mylar balloon to ruin that backcountry wilderness feel.
Yeah.
Where it's like, happy graduation day, and it's like June, and you're like, God dang it. I thought I was really out of people at this point.
Yeah, when everybody releases those balloons, you know they have to fall down somewhere, and where they end up falling down, you know, you never really know until you know.
Yeah. I will say I did have an interesting experience. I was hiking way off the trail, scouting in, like, I think it was early college. I was way off trail someplace, and I found a full deer, and I wasn't 21 yet, and I was like, I'm going to take my chances.
Oh, no.
And so it was a PBR.
All of us are shaking our heads around him right now.
It was a PBR, and I was like, I was there with a buddy. I was like, dude, this has got to be pretty good. Like, I mean, it was way high in the high country, and I went, and the whole thing went boom, blew up right in my face.
Good.
So then I was covered with skunky, stinky beer. So anyway, don't do that, but still pick up the can.
What do you think are some of the commonalities when it comes to people who like grew up or have some sort of ethic? I didn't start hunting until this is my 8th season hunting, and I knew. Like I went hunting with people and I picked up some things, but I didn't really have that father, son, or uncle's son or grandpa's son training. So do you think that people who've been hunting all their lives are more likely to be ethical and better to hunt with? Is it, do late hunters pick up the ethics better because they're more mature at that point? Or what are some of the traits of people? It might not be something you can even really calculate, but what are some of the things that you think best help people become ethical?
I don't think one hunter is more ethical than the other. I think it's sort of steeped in tradition and how you view ethics. But I think the main thing that I see is that late to life hunters, adult onset hunters, have had to communicate their reasoning and have had to defend their position of becoming a hunter during a time when they are like actually like mature in the brain and have like critical thinking skills and have to have discussions with folks outside of the hunting tradition, generally. And I think adult onset hunters are better at threading that divide. And because hunting is 4% of our population and the rest of the 96% are kind of like ambivalent or really against it, it is viewed that traditional hunters are less ethical. What I think that actually it is that traditional heritage steeped in family tradition hunters just have never had to ask themselves why they do it, and they've never had a good answer. They've never been told to sit down and be like, why are you doing this? Come up with a good like couple of phrases and tell it in a way to somebody who is your peer that you are worried about respecting you. And I really just think it's practice. And I think that leads to a major lack on the traditional hunting side. And I think that's why we're at where we're at, because hunting is going to have to expand, but we're having to go back and ask those traditional hunters to defend themselves in a way that isn't drawing a line in the sand, just saying, well, because it's the way it's always been and this is how I do it. That doesn't resonate. We're trying to so I really actually think it comes down to communication, and it's not one that's less ethical than the other. I mean, I've seen adult onset hunters do some stuff that was as bad as somebody that's been doing it forever. And I just think people are people, and some people make really bad decisions. Doesn't matter where you come from. I will say that what I've experienced as an adult onset hunter, looking at traditional hunters and being in this, I think sometimes ethics evolve with culture. And if you've grown up in a community that hasn't ever had to ask itself why, sometimes ethics evolve that are really hard to explain to an outside public. And maybe that means that those morals and ethics need to update. But that's a hard conversation to have. I guess I could say that I see where they're all coming from. I don't think one is worse than the other. What I do think is one is really far behind their communications and actual critical thinking around it.
And me being, I guess, the token traditional hunter in this trio, I don't think we ever talked about it. I mean, it just wasn't a conversation that was had at any point growing up until I went to college and was around a bunch of folks who were either anti or non-hunters, that it became a conversation to be had about like the ethics around it. And I'll be honest, like I'll step out on a limb and say most traditional hunters, I don't think have like the ethic of place and like of taking care of the resources that we have, whether it's picking up the Mylar balloons or just understanding the conservation impact you have when you're out hunting. Like most traditional hunters are just out hunting and they don't necessarily know that background.
I think we become, when anything becomes routine, we border on the ability of becoming lazy in what we do. And the problem with that is when hunting becomes routine and we get lazy around our reasonings and our ethics, it's another life that's involved. And so it gets a lot more heavy conversation around it than if you just like got lazy, like riding your bike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the traditional hunters in many cases have laid that foundation of mentorship for people, which can be extremely beneficial. And then the new age hunter has to know that everything is going to be talked about, put on social media, everything. So it's really interesting to me that there'd still be people who hate out-of-state hunters, but then when they become an out-of-state hunter, end up being, the exact thing that they don't like. And if you know that someone's going to be reading, posting, taking pictures, or whatever, how is that not impacting us? Like, how are we still making certain mistakes? And like you said, like no one is perfect. Like we're going to have shots that some people might say are unethical, or, you lose an animal. Like that sort of stuff is an unfortunate byproduct of it. So why do we still do those things that we should know we probably shouldn't do? Why can't we just be good guests if we're so good at calling other people out for being bad guests?
Because hunters are really self-centered.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to any season setting meeting and it's like, well, I didn't see the big deer that I wanted to see. And where's all the elk? And why aren't you doing this for me? And I very rarely hear the story of like, I want this place to be better for my children. What can we do to bring more deer here? That's not the language we hear around it. And I don't care if it's traditional hunter or adult onset hunter. We're this very incredibly, ridiculously privileged class of human to be able to do this to start with. And every part of this is steeped in privilege. And I mean that in the sense of not like you're well off and you're rich, but you are lucky to be able to go out and do that. And this is where I like run into the problem, because I don't think hunting's a right. I think it's a privilege that we get to do, and we're going to lose it if we don't start like waking up to that fact. And so we get this like very, what about me and my experience, rather than like, what is my impact on this place and how can I have a great experience and have as like sort of in cycle with the rest of the landscape while I'm here, rather than like, what about me and my big deer and my kill and my Instagram page?
Yeah, the opposition for hunters are not going to be quoting the people who have the best interest of the resource in mind. The people who are going to be quoted and cited are the people who are the, posting just the gross pictures or the non-conservation pictures and whatnot, and it just gives them ammunition. I remember a couple of years ago when PETA came out with that Facebook frame thing.
And we walked into that one.
Yeah, and that was such a brilliant marketing tool. It may have been intentional or unintentionally brilliant, but if you are someone who is concerned about the cruelty of animals, and then you see these people who are going out of their way to then do that, I mean, the money, the members, the whatever, it was a brilliant ploy, because it misrepresented so much of the culture. But when you have such a small percentage of actual hunters, then that's a big deal.
As I always say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, except for in the case of hunting, 1,000 words is not enough to describe why we're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Exactly. So do you think that people are more likely to protect their home, but then when they go somewhere else, they don't care as much? Like the black-tailed deer, I'm concerned here because so much money is going to protecting wolves up here. So we're in a pandemic right now, and you have people who are worried about getting food. And so by hunting deer, they can get that food. But you have people who are putting thousands and thousands or millions of dollars into protecting the wolves that eat the food up here for the subsistence livers. But I might then go down to Wyoming and say, well, I don't care about your problems. I'm just going to do whatever I want, and I just want you to get me a big mule deer. I'll worry about conservation when I'm back home. Do you think there's an element of that?
Yeah.
I think also there's probably a caveat here that I don't know that there's a ton of folks who do the multi-state thing as much as maybe the hardcore that we know or the people who like to travel. Maybe there are, and I don't know.
That would be an
interesting.
I'm sure that survey probably exists somewhere about how many people are non-resident hunters. Like, like on the average, is it like 10% of hunters hunt in other states other than their home state? Or like, I'd be curious. I don't know what that is. That might be a Google we have to do. But
and like, I didn't know anybody who traveled to hunt a state growing up. But I mean, again, like, I don't know. I'm a sample size of one. Yeah. But I really do think that a large part of it is like the whole not in my backyard conversation. It's like anything is fine if it's happening and it's not happening near you. Like, let's just say the wolf versus blacktail situation, or Colorado just voted to reintroduce wolves, right? And like, I was like, oh, that's happening in Colorado. We have them here in Wyoming. I'm not
by ballot measure.
By ballot measure. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not going to get involved in that conservation issue because it's not mine, right? Well, maybe I should have, or maybe I shouldn't have, whatever the case is. That's just an example of how we look at that elsewhere. And like,
and it's also hard because as a byproduct of my job, I did get involved with that.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I think it's a little bit of both. I know when I travel, I don't know. I think it's just land ethic because I don't feel like, I'll pick up a Mylar balloon anywhere. And I think something that I like about traveling to hunt is I start getting to know the policies and the management that's going on in those areas. I've been very, very fortunate in the fact that when I am traveling to hunt, I'm often traveling with people who are pretty deep into the conservation mindset, either work part of the industry. And so I get a lot of information that comes along with hunts. But on the other side of that, when I went to the Northwest Territories for this Dall sheep hunt and mountain caribou hunt, one of the more profound moments was after this hunt, we had a day or two sort of back at base camp, and I sat down with Harold Grindy, the outfitter, and just like sort of opened a flora and fauna book that he had and went down this book and was asking him about the edible plants and asking him like the changes that he's seen in the years that he's owned this business. And, while we may have differing opinions on whether it's predator hunting or whatever, his depth of knowledge of that place was incredible. And I felt like I came away like knowing like Northwest Territories management issues and what they're wrestling with, which is, you know, not so different to what we're wrestling with. But I don't know. I think it's just like that land ethic, if you have it, I think it just travels with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it changes as much. I think it's more the like
it's like whether you can teach it at home base or not. Like if
Yeah.
they have it at home base, then you know it travels with you. But like another good example is in Colorado, the hunt I was on was the reason why there was so much opportunity for deer is because they're trying to keep the chronic wasting disease from spreading. And I'm not so sure that there were a ton of hunters who went into that hunt going like, woohoo, a CWD hunt, you know, like they were thinking like, I'm going to go shoot a waster, you know? And I talked to a bunch of hunters and was like, hey, you going to get that tested? It's 26% prevalence here. And they're like, wait, really? And they're like, no, I cut it off already. And it was just one of those things. You're like, well, it's not mandatory. I'm like, yeah, of course it's not mandatory, but it'd still be good to know if you're going to eat something that has it.
Like it's just data points for research, and it's $20 off your wallet, if not free, in Colorado.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things. I think we have to instill that at the home base, and then hopefully folks take it with them wherever they go.
I think it's just, I mean, we're asking hunters to step up, and it's hard.
Yeah.
I think you really miss out on part of the travel experience if you don't have some sort of idea of that geographical, like, politics. You know, I grew up watching so many people come up here and fish and go home with fish. Like, and all that's just going down south. And are they going to eat it, or is it just about having, you know, 6 boxes of 50 pounds of fish, you know, in the airport? And is that just the flex that you're looking for? Is it going to be eaten and appreciated, or is it just all sent south? And now, you know, our populations of salmon have been dwindling a little bit here in Southeast, and, you know, still you have people heading south with our fish. And some of those people are great guests because they want to know about what's going on here. Right? And they, even the people, you know, it's what are these trees? What's the difference in these trees? And talking to the kids who are cutting their fish, like, oh, you know, you were on the state basketball championship team. Like that's great, you know. And I think you just miss out if you don't know some of that. If it's just about you going there and getting your fish or shooting your mule deer or your elk, you just miss out on, you know, going in and seeing how they take out the nodes at when Abby and I took ours in Laramie, just to see, you know, meet someone new and they get in there with the little cutting edge and they take them out. And like, there's no way I would have found that. I would have tried to Google it, but maybe. And then on Abby's when she got a doe, she cut him out herself and took him in, and the person was pretty impressed. But just that, you know, knowledge, that next level, like I can do this, or I know about these, some of the stats, but also being who you are. Like you're not from there, so you don't have to pretend that you are, but you don't have to pretend that, you know, just it's okay to appreciate something new. And I think if you try to blend in or pretend to be a local when you're not, I think you really miss out.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other part of that is that what we desperately need right now around all of this are advocates. And you build an advocate by an experience that's more than just like going to the grocery store. It's like, you know, you talk about like the salmon thing. I mean, there's a reason that we take politicians on like ground tours of places that we're trying to save. And if there's a reason we take them out fishing if we can, and show them what this incredible experience is and can be, and why it's like, it's hard to put a like dollar price on like the human condition and why it's lovely to be out in these places, because that's how you have to sell it to the politicians, is it has to be like an economic number. And so like what we're missing out in any of this, and it's why hunters are so damn behind the ball on advocating for things. We're great at yelling about stuff when people take it away, but we're really, really, really terrible at protecting it proactively, because we've just never had to. And we just think it's inherently ours, and this is the way, and it's my deer, and I'm going to go out and kill it, rather than being like, no. Like, I want 500 years from now, a kid to go out and be able to fish for salmon and have the same experience and feel this like same connection. So I think there really is an element of like, when you experience more, when you get to know the politics, when you get to know the conservation base, and even some of the history of wherever you're at, like it makes you care more just by nature of like, you know more, you care more.
There's so many studies about the medicinal qualities of being outside, and then in the filled, hunting is part of the cultures, right? There's the hunting part. It's so important. And it's great to live here. And I'm sure it's the same in Wyoming, where you have, female hunters, generations of hunters. It's just part of the culture. And it's so much more healthy. I was just talking to one of my journalism students, and she was talking about how she went and got a deer over the weekend. I was like, that's great. And there was another kid who got 2. I'm like, that's awesome. I didn't get any, but just to have that part of the conversation, like we're all on that same level. It's a connecting point for so many people when it's a part of that culture. And, you're getting your own food. You've taken up the responsibility of doing that, where if that's all taken away and we can't do that anymore, it's only for super rich people or private landowners, then so much percentage of the population doesn't get that connection. Or it's just, I'm getting my protein from crickets, and I go outside once a week, or I put on my VR glasses, and that's how I go outside. It's just, you can't trick the brain, I think, into those sort of real opportunities that we have. And it's sad thinking about what the future might be.
Yeah, I think it's this goes back to communications, and in an era where our communications are lazy. I mean, you need 130 characters and you can run a presidency apparently, and like it just like 280. 280. I was like, it became more now. Like it's that thing of like these incredibly nuanced or policy or health benefits or experiences can't be boiled down into these little blurbs. And so we're not asking our current generation to do more and communicate more and be better and be more. And like podcasting is actually, I think, one of the few sort of venues that you can actually do that and get into something that's more. But then again, like when we're trying to get like a populace wide cultural change, which is what we are trying to do with like the hunting stuff, we are looking for a culture change, and that has to be much bigger. It has to be more than just one mechanism of communications. It has to be everything, and it has to be fundamental. Like we have to be teaching our children this. I don't know how we tackle that, but
and it seems like with maybe these conversations, we're kind of talking to the choir in the ways that we feel like things could improve or are moving in a positive direction, or ways that we can move things into a positive way. But ultimately, we're still talking to people who are the choir. So we have to reach outside of our bubbles in order to. We have
to train the choir, and then we have to train the choir to talk outside the choir.
Yeah, it's hard, man.
That's a huge part of kind of everything right now. And I feel as a teacher, I have such a great opportunity. And that, people say, "Oh, indoctrination!" Like, no, it's just I just want you to think, right? And our culture values not intellectual products. We value distractions, and we make influences out of people who do not provide any sort of value. So we're not good at mining value. We're good at distractions. We're good at being suckers or slaves to distraction. And so as a teacher, I have that. It's kind of like in the brain, and again, that comes from the podcast I listen to and like who influences me. So I can kind of, I'm not saying, hey kids, hunt this and that, but just, hey, let's think, like look for stuff that provides value. There's great conversations to be had, but you talk about preaching to the choir, talking to the choir. So that's what we do with so much. What's the action plan? All right. We all agree that this is bad. We all agree that this is good. Well, what's the next step? We get stuck on that step because we don't have people with ideas, or we don't listen to the ideas. We don't connect to the ideas. It's just all bad. And then we just pile on. Well, we got to do something about it at some point. All right. So be a thinker, like kids, be a thinker, come up with ideas, because otherwise we're not going to get anywhere. We're just going to yell.
I still think like some of the most fundamental things I've ever figured out is how to talk to somebody that I disagree with, and how to like I'm a lobbyist. Like I talk to people I disagree with all the time, and I still have great respect for a great many of them. And I think that's the thing, is you're not looking to indoctrinate anybody. What you're looking to do is share an experience in the hopes that like maybe there's some enlightenment on either side. Usually it happens both ways. I mean, there's things with hunting that as a new hunter I thought was incredibly unethical. Like hunting with dogs in a lot of places, and have since, while I'm not necessarily comfortable with it in like hunting bears with dogs, a lot of places do that, but I also understand like why it started and where the tradition came from, and that there are people doing it well. Just like in all hunting, there's people that misbehave. Those are called poachers, not hunters. And then there's people that, while they may be doing a style of hunting that's not for you, it's not necessarily unethical either. And some of the greater hunting conversations I've had have been when I'm talking about something I'm a little uncomfortable with, but want to like learn more about. And, you know, the more you do, the more you kind of see their side. And that doesn't mean you're changing everybody's mind. It just means like there's a gray area in there. It doesn't have to be black or white.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's you go ahead.
I said it's just that critical thinking.
Yeah. How people represent their point is almost as important, if not more important, than their point themselves. Like they're just, I'm going to yell. Okay, well, what's the point? Articulate your point in a way that we can discuss it. It's not about shouting over, but I think we're definitely in a shouting over type culture. And, you know, for hunters, a lot of times that might we're going to end up on the short end of the stick. But understanding that stuff is so important. Here in Southeast Alaska, we have, you know, a lot of the locals, they just want to catch the fish, and rightfully so. It's part of their food source. And you have the charter guides who have the nicer boats and take people out, and that fish goes south. But, you know, the locals know that we have to have tourists, right? There's no way that Ketchikan survives without tourists. We hate that there's 5 cruise ships and 10,000 people downtown, and you can't get through downtown, and it's chaos. But without that, Ketchikan's dead. You know, when the logging kind of went out and Ketchikan was in a bit of a recession in the 90s, it had to be reinvented somehow. So without logging, we need some sort of industry. So it became the cruise ship industry. So when people could say, all right, well, I don't necessarily like the tourists, but you can't have it both ways. We got to have it. And so tourism. And now without tourism this last year, it's going to be weird to see how things come back. But yeah, just being able to articulate your point in a way that's just, it's like an art, but it shouldn't be. It should just be obvious.
I think Wyoming has a similar to Ketchikan, like Teton County, where Jackson, Wyoming is. Their greatest export is tourism via wildlife watching. Like people coming in, they don't go to Jackson, Wyoming to do anything other than go see wolves and grizzly bears and bison and bugling elk. And that tourism industry there is humongous. And it is one of the counties that gives the highest economic value to the state. And that's like out competing a lot of the oil and gas counties. And so, you know, there's a balance in that of like, we haven't placed a high enough resource value on a lot of this. So that we respect it when we come into those new places. But like you said, Jackson tourism might drive me up a wall, and I may stay out of there in the summer because of it. But also the state would be hurting this year, especially because the tourism didn't drop off for us in Yellowstone or Grand Teton National Park this year. It went up. And we ended up with a higher tourism, and I would argue that it's saving the butt of this state right now as we are going through this COVID and this like oil and gas bust.
Yeah, we had higher tourism because they couldn't go to Ketchikan.
Yeah, exactly. Steal our fish. Yeah. So where's one place that you would like to go now, and then one place you would have liked to go before it became trendy, touristy, over privatized, or what? So going back to this tour thing or this hunting somewhere, where would you want to go now, and then where would you have liked to go a long time ago?
I have mine. You have yours.
You go.
I'll go for it. I think the leading one right now is I've been trying to figure out for the last couple years how to get up to Alaska, because Alaska is where I want to go now. But where I would have wanted to go, and maybe still go see, I have family in Florida, and I think being in Florida before it was Florida would have been a really exceptional and amazing experience, with just such a, you know, I grew up in Wyoming, Montana, and Northern California, super Western, very dry, arid places. And I think going to Florida and having seen it when it was like wild and jungly with its like all these different things that I've seen now, but like, never hunted in and never seen in the thing of like no telephone poles and golf courses and pink flamingos.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish I could have seen old Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think mine is just like, I want to go to Western Mongolia. I was a little bit in Eastern Mongolia and around there, and I got a taste of it when I was in high school.
Wait, are we talking outside of the U.S.? Because
Can we
that
talk
changes
about outside?
everything.
I didn't clarify my parameters there.
No, but okay. So if I have to stick in the U.S., then it would be Alaska too. I mean, or you just want to get up to your neck of the woods. But then the thing, like, it's actually the place that I would really wish I was there before the way it is now is Tahoe and all of the big ski resorts like Squaw, Alpine, Mount Rose, like all those places back in their heyday before they were kind of all blown out. I know that there's some really good high country deer hunting up there, and like it's a really cool place where you see photos of it and you're like, oh, that's gorgeous. But then you hear how many people are up there and you're like, don't really want to go there for that. Mm-hmm. So that's one that I think that I missed out on.
But Eastern Mongolia, Western Mongolia,
yeah,
are outside of the United States. Why?
So I really loved the culture when I was in Mongolia, and then there's also like this rich hunting heritage, especially with the golden eagles, that I didn't get to explore when I was in high school. On that cultural related trip, and I want to know that hunting culture, that old school kind of hunting that is out there.
I think mine is the Carpathian Mountains outside of the U.S. The reason being, like, that's where I want to go, because they do still have some like leftover wild, and they haven't fully. It's still a little primitive, I guess, in the sense of like not the culture, but just the landscape is.
What about you, Jeff?
I think I would love to have seen the buffalo. 40 million buffalo. Like, what did that look like? And part of me is tempted to say it'd be to go on a buffalo hunt, but then you sound like a huge historical jerk, But Teddy did it, right? And that's how we got the appreciation for it. It'd just be amazing to see that before they, got taken out.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Northern California, when the Chinook would go up into, just all the way up, way past Sacramento, past where, Redding is now, up into the McCloud River and Steelhead. Like, that's just, it's beautiful country as it is now. And I fished that for trout. But
I grew up on the McCloud River.
It's beautiful.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Now, you got that beautiful strain of rainbow trout, but you don't have the Chinook anymore, and you don't have the Steelhead anymore. And man,
they almost didn't have anything anymore. Nestle almost put a water bottling plant on that would have ruined the McCloud River.
Oh, yeah. It's so close. Like, you can imagine what it looked like before when you get into that valley. And so the fact that it's not like that is kind of sad. But I would love to get to like the real Alaska, the north, the tundra, and hunt for caribou. That still exists now, which is awesome. But I would love to do a fly in or float, because that, there's only so much there's so much land up there, and it's so.
Sounds like we should coordinate something here. There's three very similar.
Well, we can cover the Southeast Alaska one pretty easy, but that up north one, I think that would be definitely something that would be sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So. Any closing thoughts about travel or hunting or anything like that?
I wanted Jess to share her car travel snack routine, because it is next level. And I will be honest, I'm trying to pick up on it, but I still ended up eating gas station burritos on the way home. But she's got me pretty well like licked on some like really good ideas. Like, I pack sugar snap peas now. So,
I don't know.
What are your travel snack tips?
I guess I always like, I don't know on the spot. I learned them all from my mom. My mom was like, I was raised very ranch kid, health conscious, like we grow our own food kind of family. And so I like never got to eat processed snacks, since I never got used to that. not to say that I don't enjoy a Pop-Tart every once in a while.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to do both. I would say like pack the sweet and the things that are bad for you. But like sugar snap peas, baby carrots and hummus. What are some other? Oh, apples and string cheese. I'll pack celery with like little things of peanut butter to do like dipping sticks kind of thing. And then like you can do like obviously pack like chips and things that you like that are not healthy because that helps things go. But stuff that's not high calorie, that's just munchy because we get bored. Those like veggie straws I found were really, really good and basically just air.
And she's got me on the seed train too, like sunflower seeds.
Yeah.
That's a good move.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't realize it was such a revolutionary snacking game.
When it's easy to go in and pick up a little tube of freaking, what are those, Pringles and soda pop and, whatever else, Chex Mix, like it's really easy to really feel like crap after the long drive, but we drive enough that Jess has got it dialed.
I like the kombucha too. Like have a soda, but also get some kombucha just so you're quite less processed sugars.
Mm-hmm.
It's not none, but less.
That sounds a lot like Abby's program. We have the hummus with the carrots and the string cheese and the apple. Just having that fresh, even bringing a small apple on the hike. Just when you've had mountain houses, you've had dehydrated stuff, to have that fresh. Oh man, it tastes so good. It's worth the extra weight for sure.
And honestly, one of the best things to like pack a big apple. And then when you eat it, you're like, not only have I done something healthy, but my pack is lighter, and it's a win-win.
Yeah, for sure. It was funny when Abby and I got back to the boat after the proposal hunt. Like we had hiked about 6 miles and we biked 7 miles. So we got back to the boat and we ate a whole bag of Cheetos. Like all the things, like we had apples and we had that, but it was Cheetos, just trashy. But in that moment, it was, it just sounded so good. And we just went through the whole bag.
I think it's like when you're in the car and when you're not doing anything, eating those healthy like things feels really good. But man, after you've been on a hunt, like eat the Cheetos, have the greasy hamburger. I don't care what it is. It like you've been dreaming about. As long as it's not Mountain House, you're probably stoked.
It's like the body is saying, really? Well, all right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for being on here. I really appreciate some of your afternoon here. It's good talking to both of you at the same time.
Yeah, it's good talking to you. Thanks for having us both on. I'm glad we got Jess on too, because I know she has a lot of really good experiences and perspective on this stuff. So, thanks for having us.
We got the Wyoming correspondents now, plural.
Yep, that's right.
Take care. Thanks.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.